Ladies and gentlemen,
Good evening.
Are you ready?
Okay, here we go.
You're listening to the Deal Room Podcast. Join us as we bring you the inside scoop on business sales and acquisitions. Get across trends in the area and hear the industry's best recount their real-life tips, traps, and experiences. Now, here's your host, Joanna Oakey.
Hi, it's Joanna Oakey here, and welcome back to the Deal Room Podcast, a podcast proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. Now, today we have a bit of an interesting one for you. A little bit different to what we normally talk about. We have on the show Hugo Martin and Harry Notaras from ABS Business Sales. And Hugo and Harry talked to us about some very interesting things. I guess firstly, a bit of a background. Hugo is a certified business broker and registered business valuer with more than 15 years as a business broker. And in 2018 was awarded Queensland Business Broker of the Year. Harry is also a certified business broker and registered business valuer with ABS Business Sales. Now, in this episode with Harry and Hugo, we were going to talk about the state of the market, but as it turned out, we got a little bit distracted talking about some really interesting approaches to marketing that Hugo and Harry have adopted in their Pinot Fridays. So we talk about marketing, we talk about life as a business broker and some of the challenges, but we also talk about the challenges and the opportunities for business owners as a whole as we dig into the type of content that Hugo and Harry talk about on their Pinot Fridays. And I think it's such a great conversation because we talk about the importance of differentiation in the market. We talk about the importance of having a client-centric focus, and also the importance of really having a highly motivated and engaged team. And all of these things are not just hugely important for creating value for businesses at sale, but they're also important for anyone who's in the business broking industry to keep in mind in terms of how we can differentiate ourselves in this market. So without further ado, here is Hugo and Harry. Hugo and Harry, a huge welcome to the Deal Room Podcast.
Thank you very much, Joanne. It's a pleasure. It really is.
Now, I've wanted to record this for a while because I have heard around the traps about your Pinot Fridays. Is that what you call it? Pinot Friday?
We do. Yep.
Tell me all about that. Like, what is that all about? Other than, I completely identify with you wanting to finish the week with a splash of wine, but recording as well. Like, this is something new.
Well, about 5 years ago, my wife said to me, Hugo, you should get into this social media stuff because she works in social media. And Harry and I said...
No, she said that about 8 years ago. It took us 3 or 4 years to get into it.
Sorry, I stand corrected. And anyway, so she said, you should get out there before anybody else does. And nobody was doing anything really or any significance in terms of social media, certainly within the business broking network here in Australia.
Other than the Deal Room Podcast.
Other than the Deal Room. We just sat down there and my wife Jane said, just do something. So eventually we said, let's just do something. We had no idea what to do. So what should we call it? So we'll do this at the end.
This is Hugo's idea, the name of it.
So I just said, what about Pinot Fridays? Sounds good. Pinot Chardonnay, Pinot Shiraz, Pinot no, it doesn't sound good. Pinot Friday is the perfect title. And so we actually had no idea what we were doing. So I went out and bought this rickety old stand from one of the local shops, stuck the iPhone on it, and they said, well, it can't be that difficult, Harry, can it? Let's just do it.
Exactly.
And what sort of, we'll come back to the Pinot in a moment, so just, hold on to that thought. But what sort of content do you record? Do you talk about the Pinots or you talk about business?
We always talked about business. So we thought, let's not make it just about business sales, because people know we're business brokers. And so that's obvious, So going out there and doing the hard sell was not what we were intending to do. So we thought, let's just talk about things of interest. So let's.
Actually, early in the piece, we used to give it a lot of thought.
We did.
What would write something?
Like 5 minutes?
No, more than that. It eventually got down to it was just too much time, too hard to give a lot of thought. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
So Hugo said, "Oh, well, let's just talk about this." So I said, "Fine." So we do give each other 5 minutes to think about the topic a little bit, and then we just go and do it.
So we thought, let's talk about what are the key factors in any business environment. What do we need? What are the ingredients? Well, if we're making a cake, we know what the ingredients need to be. So generally in business, to be successful, what are the key ingredients? So we thought we'll do leadership, we'll talk about persistence, we'll talk about people, we'll talk about anything except selling businesses.
All right, so that's your whole mode. Talk about anything except.
We do occasionally talk about, how fabulous we are.
There's stuff that's tangential, it's sort of a little bit married up, but.
And Harry, he's a trained economist, so he has a perspective which I hope to emulate at some point when I'm about 90. So he can provide a more, specific, pithy. That's the word I was looking for.
Pithy.
Analysis. So, but what I did was I actually went and made a list of just titles, about 25. All different types of headings. Like I said, leadership, persistence, all those type of things. What are the key drivers of any business? The people, marketing, branding, just anything. And we just thought we'll just talk for 5 minutes on that particular topic, and we'll spend 3 minutes waffling about a wine and having a drink.
Actually, it's been handy because we talk about these topics, all right, but quite often they come from a layman's point of view, and then we switch to, or we mention a more technical economist, finance, business broking point of view, and try and marry them up. But that just happens organically.
That's right.
And then when Hugo talks about the wine, I just sit there and nod, mostly.
He's on the technical wine side, right?
The beauty of it is it's totally unrehearsed. And we don't go in there with a script or anything. We just said, this is the topic. Let's make it happen.
And look, I think this is an interesting comment. We're going to be talking about different things today initially, but just while we're on this point, I think it's an interesting thing that we're talking about because we have listeners who are buyers and sellers of businesses, who are accountants, but also business brokers. For all of those people, this whole concept of how do you market yourself is an interesting and a tangential topic to what I normally talk about, but relevant to everyone nonetheless. And we're almost at 260 or more episodes, I don't know, of The Deal Room now. We're up to almost 400. I've got a second podcast that's called Talking Law. So in total, we've got about 440 episodes. So I've hit this interesting point where, because I used to plan things, just like you were saying right in the beginning, and now it's more driven on what people want to hear about and interesting things that I'm hearing around in the market. But it's interesting being a content producer as because that's what you are too. And I love the Pinot concept, and we do have to get to Pinots in a second. But I'm just interested in hearing about what you think. Are you coming at this, if you're talking about things that aren't necessarily about business sale, but your business is selling businesses, is your idea that you then have this long communication cycle with businesses as they're preparing to exit? Or is it more just you're just doing this for the love of it?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
I wouldn't overcomplicate it though.
It's not this whole thing really was a branding exercise, if we were totally honest. That's part of it. Right at the beginning, we thought, how do we brand ourselves differently? How do we get out there? How do we utilize the technology that's becoming available to our advantage? And in a space that we had no knowledge of whatsoever. That's right. And although we talk about general subjects, they do focus in towards the end on if you have fabulous leadership within your organisation, you will attract great people. You will encourage. What are the key factors to success in business? Are leaders, are people who can who can stimulate and attract followers, who have a purpose. So there are three factors in any leadership. So you go to Churchill, there has to be a situation, there has to be followers, which was the British people, and there has to be a leader, which was the individual himself. You combine all those things together in a business context. It's no different.
It's interesting, I guess, if we're coming back to, I just want to pick up on a point that you made about when you started about the need to differentiate yourself in a market. And I think that's such a good point. And I was holding a webinar last week, actually, where I was had someone on the panel who had sold a 1,000 person multi-million dollar business. He had a brilliant business. And he was talking about the need to differentiate, for every business to differentiate themselves, and that being a critical element of creating success in a business. And when I heard that, I just thought that rings so true to me. And of course, we see businesses, don't we, in our industry? I'm talking about now the broking side. We're not brokers, obviously, we're lawyers, but we see businesses that exit. We see businesses that achieve real value at sale, and what differentiates them from those businesses that struggle to sell or struggle to make the value that the owners feel that they should be getting out of the business that they're selling. And it is some of these factors that we're talking about right now, and I presume that you talk about on your weekly podcast, podcast, video, whatever it is.
We've done about 100.
Every 2 weeks. Yep. Yep. That really make the difference in value at exit.
So that critical customer service element is unifiedly important to every single business. So even a business like yours, Joanna, the thing that differentiates legal practices really comes down to customer service. It's treating each individual person that walks through that door, as someone you nurture and you deliver service. You happen to deliver a technical legal service. We deliver a service in terms of knowledge of how you transact a sale in a business, or if you're working on behalf of a buyer. As a buyer's agent, similarly, it's the ability to deliver superior customer service that ultimately I think differentiates almost any business. Doesn't matter how good your product is, unless you're Apple, in which case you can just use everybody and get away with it. But unfortunately, we can't.
Well, on that note, then, what are examples that you've seen of businesses that have really got it all together from all of the elements that you talk about in your fortnightly Pinot Fridays? What's an example of businesses you've dealt with that have got that all together and then gone to market and that's proven to create a success for them at market?
I had a sort of technology business that really was about a couple of years, just before COVID, this particular one. And the lady who owned it, she wasn't from a technology background, but she was very good at understanding people, and she was really good at customer service. And she managed to imbue a culture within that business of really the importance of the customer. And so she was able to translate that into every transaction that they did, had almost a customer service benchmark that had to be met. And she was immensely successful. And I sold that business to a buyer in Singapore. Fantastic business. Also within the hospitality space that I come from, the businesses that are easier to sell, and they're never really easy to sell because certainly at the moment because of staff issues. But the ones that really, it's not just a lot of, you see the businesses that somehow have everything but something's missing. So you walk into a cafe or restaurant and the hair stands up on the back of your head because it has energy. It has generated something intangible that gives that business something that holds it together. And it comes back to culture. and developing this culture. And definition of culture is the glue that holds something together in a simplified way. So if you can somehow create this culture, and it's driven by the person at the top.
Yeah.
They drive it. They're able to infuse an enthusiasm into the people that work for them. And ultimately, because you don't get very well paid in hospitality, you work there because it's fun. It gives you something. You walk out feeling a better person at the end of the day.
Should warn people, if they watch MasterChef, don't go out and buy a hospitality business.
No, exactly. It's being able
It'll
to
destroy your passion, but
So you see hospitality businesses that succeed. You walk down the street and there's 10 businesses, 3 are full, and the others they all look the same. So why? It's not the food. It's something special. It's the culture that's been bred into every single person that works in that business. And that same applies. I've had manufacturing businesses as well, where you think, oh, boring old thing, creating, balustrades and stuff like that. But they again treated their customers in the same way. Really strong sense of the importance of the customer.
it's not actually rocket science, really. It's not simple.
I was going to say, it may not be rocket science, but it's not simple either. The ideas perhaps are simple and straightforward.
Very simple
the
in hindsight,
execution,
Joanne,
yes.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
When you're doing it from foresight, trying to figure out how you're going to get there, it's tough because you have all these impediments, obstacles constantly thrown at you if you're in business.
Yeah.
What I find, with the business I sell, if they look like a business, you go in there and they're functioning and they're busy and they've got staff and they've got a lease and they've got a shop front and they've got a sign and they do things and they've got a website and happy customers. To get to that point, it's not easy. No. It sounds straightforward, but that's all you've got to do. To keep it simple and just keep plodding along.
Love it, but that's all you got to do.
It's surprisingly, if you have someone who's a leader who understands what the core drivers of that business, it happens.
Yeah.
Because and it's relentless as well. You can never give up. You can't think, I've got there, sit back and enjoy it. No. There is no relenting. There's got to be no error.
There has to be a touch of tyranny in this. Nice tyranny, benevolent dictatorship.
Yeah, you do. I mean, the businesses I've had in hospitality, I had a philosophy that said basically there is absolutely no room for error. We work on 100% satisfaction. You cannot make a mistake. Obviously, that's not possible. But if you approach it with, we cannot make a mistake. Because some of the staff would say to me, Hugo, you're nuts. How can that be the case? I said, if you're lying on the operating theatre and the brain surgeon's got your head open, do you think there's room for error? He goes, there isn't. So there's no room for error in what we do either. You might just be serving food, but there's no. And I think, because we all make mistakes, that's fine. But, if you have that philosophy of driven passion for excellence, and that comes through supporting the people that work for you to make that happen, they're the critical. It's nothing, like Harry said, it's not that complex.
It's not complex, it's just difficult.
It's just difficult.
We've actually just literally 2 days ago, I hired someone to become the engagement manager for our team because, we've got an amazing team, but one of the things that is super important to me is that we have team that are fulfilled by what they do because team that are engaged and we've got a legal firm, so we've got a lot of smart, the lawyers, they've studied a lot, they're technically on top of things, but it's also about finding in the legal profession a way to connect our lawyers and our team with something bigger, in the connection to our clients, the connection to the purpose of what we're doing. But I do find an area like law is one of those ones where it's really hard to find examples to follow of how to create that great culture because it's not an industry that's known for having great culture for staff, right? So
I had a lawyer. I had a law student work for me at the Library here in Brisbane, and he worked for me for about 4 years. And he was Dux in law at UQ, and then he went to become a senior partner at one of the major law companies here in town, and then he went to Cambridge and did a master's in law, but really smart kid, and he's now senior partner in one of the major law firms here in Australia. And he wrote to us to say that the thing that differentiated him in his industry, he said, was the lessons he learned for the 4 years that he worked as a waiter. He said, you know what, I apply exactly the same philosophy behind every transaction that I do. Every person that walks in as a client to me, I treat as if I was a waiter serving them at a table. He said that's the core difference between me and some of my colleagues. And I attribute that to the extraordinary success that I've been able to achieve. Obviously, he had worked hard. He was very smart and studied.
Nothing like a touch of humility.
Exactly. It's just finding those... They're not big things. They're really tiny things.
The respectful things.
Respectful things. It's about getting everyone together and say, do you realise who's the boss in this whole process? The customer. Because they pay us.
They pay.
Well, look, we have traversed some very interesting issues, but what we have not talked about so far is Pinot. So I've got the glass here. I haven't even filled it up. I was like rushing to the podcast, and I'm lucky. I mean, I'm in lucky because my husband appeared to have been drinking a Pinot last night, so I stole the rest of his Pinot to come our podcast today. But tell me, please, what is the Pinot that you're drinking here today on it's actually Thursday, not Pinot Friday today when we're recording. Pinot Thursday.
Pringa Estate Mornington Peninsula Pinot Noir.
Lovely.
Pringa was established in 1985 by Lindsay McCall, and this particular vineyard has won numerous awards. It's they do fabulous Chardonnays. To die for.
Love Chardonnay. There you go. Okay, we'll have to put that on my list.
So Pringa Estate, that's the estate Chardonnay. This is a Peninsula Chardonnay, so this is not their top of the range, but still a very, very good wine. And Pinot is one of those great things. It's the holy grail of winemaking.
You can have it for lunch and still go back to work.
You can do that, but to actually make a great Pinot, is elusive. They just don't behave the way they normally like a Cabernet or a Shiraz
finicky
does.
wines.
But when you get it right, it is utterly sublime. It is beautiful.
So have you tasted this drop yet? No? Okay, well, you have to give us notes once you taste it so that we can put it up on the show notes to this podcast.
Well, make sure you have the microphone on because you have to hear the crack of the bottle and the glug as it goes into the glass. That's part of the cachet.
We'll talk about it if you want to. We can have a little drink.
Okay, we'll do it. Open it up. I want to hear. Okay. And I want to hear the glug.
This is part of our Pinot Fridays.
Oh, they're beautiful glasses, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So this is part of our ritual. So we look at the colour as we pour it and think, what do you think of that colour, Harry?
That looks like an aged wine, but it's not.
It's not. It's got a beautiful ruby crimson character, isn't it?
Looks like awesome. Maybe I'm looking through the wrong light. It looked a little bit smoky.
It does.
It's not actually that smoky.
There is a tiny bit of...
Nice.
There's elements of smoke. not as much as Adelaide Hills.
It's got legs, Hugo.
It's got legs, so it's got a fair bit of alcohol. Let's have a look.
How's it smell?
Divine. It's beautiful. Can you smell those?
It's like breathing a pizza.
Those bitter cherries, that wonderful raspberry.
Oh, if you say so, Hugo. I like it. I like the smell of it. I wish I could describe it.
No. It's got beautiful foresty characters.
Brambly?
Definitely brambly. It's got that lovely sort of middle palate, right way across.
A bit of vanilla extract, isn't it?
A bit of vanilla.
Okay, I've decided I was actually thinking of setting up a competing channel to your Pinot Friday. I was thinking of doing Chardonnay Thursday or something, but I just you've got this down pat. I can't compete with this. You've definitely differentiated yourselves in the market.
You've got your own differentiation there, and it's exquisite. So do what you're doing.
But it's funny because we talk about Pinots, and the great American satirist James Thurber. There was this cartoon of him sitting around a table with some of his colleagues, and they poured this Pinot Noir in this glass, or Burgundy, which is the region of France, and the red wines they produce is Pinot Noir. So they're all sitting there, and there's all these grey-haired sort of academics all sniffing the wine, and the guy at the head of the table said, it's a naive, domestic little Burgundy, but I think you'd be amused by its presumption. All-time classic.
Oh, I love it. So this Hugo and Harry is Pinot Friday on a Thursday, as we say. Or full disclosure, it's actually Thursday, not Friday here while we record. But this you have it, folks, is Pinot Friday. I think it's a great idea, and I guess sort of rounding out for what it all means for our business owners who are listening in, or indeed our brokers or our accountants. I think part of, obviously, we've talked about differentiation, and this is a way for you to differentiate in the market. I love, though, I love the idea that you take something that you enjoy so much and infuse it into what you do, because I guess a lot of business, to be fair, if we didn't have a passion for what we were doing, why would we come in each day and do the hard yards that it takes to run a business, run a transaction, whatever that is. But I like the idea you've picked something that you love and then combined it with a bit of marketing.
At the end of the day, business broking is a tough game. It's a tough game. So you've got to find highlights in the week.
Get
a bit of fun out of it. You know, it's really about getting outstanding results for both your clients and your customers.
And you have a lot of license if you're a business broker as well. How you go about doing things.
You do. I mean, you have enormous responsibility. I mean, it's an absolute honour to be able to do this job, because we're the element that helps people convert an asset into cash.
You interfere with their balance sheets, exactly.
Do you know what? That's what I say all the time as well, because, and from a legal perspective, there's, any other area of law almost entirely is full of some sort of conflict or, but this area is, really it's about finding the win-win, and how lucky are we to be in an industry where we can work every day to help people find the win-win, hey? Here's to that, yeah. If only my husband had left me anything to put in my glass, but... Love it.
You're further than your Chardonnay Thursday.
Look out for the competing show. Can I just say, Harry and Hugo, just a huge thank you for joining us on the Deal Room podcast today.
It's our pleasure entirely. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Now, if anyone is interested in tuning in to Harry and Hugo's Pinot Friday, we're going to put some links in the show notes, and we'll also put a link through to the two of you guys so they can make contact with you if they're interested in talking about Pinots, or, hey, maybe even selling their business.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Deal Room podcast. We hope you're now primed for your next deal with these pointers and have enjoyed these fascinating insights. Now, if you'd like more information about this topic, then head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com, where you'll be able to download a transcript of this episode, as well as access any contact details and any other additional information we referred to in today's podcast. Now, if you'd like to get in contact with our guests today and the services they offer, you can go ahead and check out our show notes for a link right through to them and their details. You can also book in directly with our legals at Aspect Legal if you'd like to soundboard your next steps, discuss a legal question, or find out more how we can assist, whether that's with buying or selling a business, or perhaps somewhere in between. Now, don't forget to subscribe to the Deal Room podcast on your favourite podcast player to get notifications whenever a new episode is out. We'd also love to hear your feedback, so please leave us a review and rating if you're already one of our subscribers, or even if you're listening to this podcast for the very first time. Every review helps our team produce valuable content for you. Well, thanks again for listening in. You've been listening to Joanna Oakey and the Deal Room podcast, a podcast proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. See you next time. Aspect Legal has a number of great services that help businesses prepare for a sale or acquisition, to help them prepare in advance and to get transaction ready. We've also got a range of services to help guide businesses through the sale and acquisitions process. We work with clients both big and small and have different types of services depending on size and complexity. We provide a free consultation to discuss your proposed sale or acquisition. So see our show notes on how to book a time to speak with us, or head over to our website at aspectlegal.com.au.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.
Thanks for listening to the Deal Room podcast. To find out more about this episode and other episodes in the series, check out the show notes or head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com.au.